Hello everyone, I'm Tyler Edlin, and thank you for watching Brush Sauce Theater Episode 9. I will be finishing up my frog painting that I spent the last two videos planning out. And reflecting back on it, and I do this often, as I'm always thinking, it just as much work really went into the preparation of this as it did finishing it, maybe even more. Just because I'm so indecisive when it comes to committing to some paintings sometimes. Not so much with the client work, but since this was for myself, I was naturally overcritical of it and was, I put it up kind of like on a pedestal even too, because it's one of my favorite games and I wanted to do it justice, and I just spent way too much energy worrying about things on this, and I should have just, I dragged it on way too long to begin with, so I should have just sat down and banged it out, which eventually I did when it came to this final. You'll notice here I started from scratch, even though I had three decent color roughs I could have just blown up and started painting on top of, but I don't know. I just wanted to start over fresh, bring in a new set of energy and momentum coming into the painting, rather than starting on a color rough that is, 1/3 already there with the base tones and hues and stuff. I don't know. I just there's something about starting on a raw canvas with some fresh ideas. Nothing beats that. And so yeah, here I'll just show you a different approach. That's with using real opaque color, which means no transparency. So that's no texture, just using a hard round brush and applying color and value, and it gives it a totally different and almost illustrative look. But I end up deleting that. This is just for an example's sake. And here I'm going to show you how I'm going to plan out the values. I'm not going to keep this or anything. This is just just to kind of illustrate my point. I'm doing midtones on the background. His body's going to be the darkest, and then the head will be the lightest eventually. So that's going to be my plan of attack, the 3-value plan. And I think that's a really good way to I use it in almost all my illustrations. It really helps with the the value structure for one, but it kind of helps with the readability of it all. I've seen some fantastic paintings out there. These guys can detail me any day of the week, and they can render things, till there's no tomorrow. But if you sit back and look at it, or if you were going to view it across the room, you squint your eyes, you wouldn't know what the hell is in the image, because it's just so congested and overly detailed everywhere. There's just, I don't know. That's kind of ties into the theme of this, of finishing a painting, is to know when to stop too. It's so easy to overwork something, and it's definitely a trap I've fallen into several times. It's just if I have something that works, just call it quits there, and roll with it and move on to the next thing. I don't have to go and noodle out every little blade of grass or every stitch in his cape to prove something. It's not worth it. So I don't know. I guess I'm more of a big picture type of guy. I don't like to get hung up on the small little details too much. I put them where I feel there's necessary, but I just don't know sometimes. With the character, I guess you got to detail a lot of things to a certain degree, but I think if you look at Frank Frazetta's work, he was a great example of an artist who he'd paint a couple figures in his paintings, but they had such a visual impact, and they're all, if you look at it, they're all very loose. He didn't have, he wasn't a digital artist he didn't have it back in the day. He just did it all with oils, and from what I've read on him, he did most of his paintings in a single night. That's great. I really try to study a lot from the old painters and bring them different aspects into them and into my own work. And that's kind of what I'm doing with this. I'm just doing I'm trying to make it fun, I'm just experimenting with, more subtle lighting, something I'm not usually used to, where I haven't been applying a lot in my work. I've been usually more like kind of like dramatic and like harsh lighting in my images. But I guess I go through different phases where I find something in some work I like, and I just kind of start that whole year. That's going to be like the theme of my paintings. I'm going to do really like up just things are in half light, and this really high contrast where the shadow and the light is. But I don't know, I'm trying to take a more subtle approach to things. And yeah, what I'm doing now is I'm just applying layers, very subtle layer on layer of texture onto this. I'm not gonna do any photo overlays of like a reptile or texture or anything like that. I mean, I think whatever custom brushes I have can do more than I'll need, so I'll just work with them. And so I'm just gonna, and this is part of my self-learning and experimenting too, is just how can I get more subtle lighting in my painting. And I think before I learned with this one is just to do it in subtle layers. I mean, you can even make one layer, as I just did, and then you can change the layer mode and have it on top of it, and then erase parts of it you don't need, and that kind of helps create the richness and the depth of the colors. See, and that's what I did. I'm going back in and deleting part of the layer that I copied, and it all just kind of creates a little subtle differences in variety with the color I pick. Like, you can put one base green down, but then if you start change the brush mode to like screen or pin light or something like that, and still just painting with that same green, you can the color of it will change depending on the setting, and you can it helps with the variety of colors. And so yeah, I'd probably be a lot more lost on this one if I didn't have that decent drawing underneath it to help guide me. And what I put that red like diamond shaped guides I'm flashing up on screen once in a while. That's just a kind of like my composition guide I made. I just made that with a line tool. I know I have a question about that, I'm sure, but it's I just kind of picked it and with the red on its own layer and used the line tool to draw, kind of like arrange the composition to kind of make sure it has a decent flow or impact to it. And yeah, now I'm just, again, trying, make a new layer, different texture, different light setting, I think, what is it, vivid light I tried, and, give a nice little sparkle to the sword. And this is all trial and error. I never get anything right first try. I'm not that type of guy. And with this is just, I'm trying to figure out how I can paint all the little textures in this. I mean, there's the cloth of the cape, the skin of the frog, the metal on the sword and the armor, the leather on all the straps and the boots. There's all kinds of textures going on, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to illustrate that. That's the challenge of this piece anyway. And in knowing when to stop on the background, I must have, you probably saw by now, I've repainted that background a lot, trying to get something that's just nice and works without making it too overbearing. And yeah, I'm gonna be going through this and just adding, just little layer by layer of detail. And I always make a new layer when I do that, and I usually just merge it down, continuing to like build from one layer. I like to keep it simple that way. If I had fewer custom brushes, then my job would probably be even easier, but I like to play with them. Alright, so one of the shortcuts I like to use all the time on the Mac, I'm not sure what it is on the PC, I'm sorry. I don't even know what it's called, but I hit Command Shift Alt E, and that duplicates the entire painting on the top layer as, a single layer. And that's how I kind of got arrived at this step. I did that, and then with that one single layer of the whole painting, I did like an image adjustment, contrast, contrast and color just under image adjustments, and that helped me realize that it was kind of just a bit too blue, and I didn't have enough. The darks weren't like rich enough, so I added some some reds in there, and then up the contrast overall a bit on it, and that kind of helped with the readability of it as a whole, I think. And yeah, I just just getting in there to do a little more details like that. I had referenced pictures of leather, but it's really difficult texture, I think, to nail, because it has sometimes it can, depending like on its age and whatnot, or even in the lighting, sometimes it's reflective, sometimes it's not. When it's worn, you start to see cracks in it, and then there starts to be little highlights all on the edges of those and stuff. Like, I don't know, there's a lot of subtleties to it and I don't think I'm over detailing it, but I'm trying to make it look like it's a nice leather strap anyways. And see some of the, maybe like a little bit of the sky color picking up on top there. So a lot of what I'm doing is using a texture brush to apply a texture, like, on the cape here, and then I'll go back in with maybe like a smudge tool or some type of blender of a different texture brush, and I'll see how that'll kind of blend it out, and just, yeah, like that. Lots of subtle adjustments, bit by bit. And then I'll even lower the opacity on it and just keep building it up. If there's a way to do everything in kind of like one pass, I don't know how to do it. But yeah, this has been a fun painting. I learned a lot, and hopefully I'll have time to and the energy to get a couple more Chrono Trigger characters done, because I think it's a fantastic game, and it was such a colorful batch of characters. So hopefully I will get some more of those, and get them in the print shop and make some of my make some money back on all this commitment. And yeah, just putting, one of the final things I like to do on a picture is check the edges, make sure they're not kind of sloppy like it kind of is now. But I like to clear those up, and then just do final lighting tweaks. So that's a bit more subtle lighting than I usually go for. I kind of like that. It'd be hard if I try to get that again, but just paint these little frog whisker things. I don't know what they're actually called, but yeah, that'll be about it, I believe. Thank you. Thank you for watching and subscribing, and take care. Oh, and another thing, I try to get to as many of the comments as I can where they require a response. Once in a while, I will just gloss over and miss one or something like that. I apologize. Hit me up if again it's important, and I will get to it. So, thank you and goodbye.